Welcome to another edition of the In the Round podcast, our first recording of 2023. It's your boy Matt Burrill here, and today we have a very special episode. Probably one of the most influential guys that in the country media realm, a guy that I've been following for a long time, that we've been following it In the Round for a while, and a guy that's recently moved to town, and someone that if you're into country music and you're into the conversations that are around country music, you'll know this dude. It's my good buddy, Mr. Grady Smith. Grady, how you doing, brother?
Good. I feel so accomplished with that intro. Thank you.
It's the years of being an overworked, underpaid radio guy, knowing how to do intros like that. You know?
Good. Yeah. I only had 6 months as a radio guy once in New York, but
really, what were you doing there? What station?
So it was actually Sirius XM.
Okay.
It was when I worked at Entertainment Weekly. We started a Sirius XM channel that I think was just Sirius XM 105, and it was EW Live. But I hosted a show. First, it was called By the Numbers, and then they pivoted all the afternoon shows to be called The Editor's Hour, where you're getting to chat with the editors of Entertainment Weekly, because it was like all old school media stuff where they think that's like a big appeal to talk to the editors. But we would just do kind of like talk radio about pop culture, and I was an editorial assistant. I was like 6 promotions away from an editor, but I had to cosplay as an editor for a couple hours a week on the radio, which was fun.
Yeah, and how long ago was that? Because Sirius has gone through like levels of changes. Because like I was in Jersey working in radio, so there was like a lot of crossover between folks that were working in like Cumulus, iHeart, or back then Clear Channel, or like different networks that were pivot over to Sirius and then come back to all that stuff.
It would have been 2013. It would have been 2013 that all that was going down, because I quit in 2014, like the whole magazine world, and so it was only in my last year there that I was doing that.
Really? No shit. Okay, cool. Yeah, because your kind of approach is like doing the journal. Like you're a journalist, you're a lover of country music, you're a personality. You do the YouTube, like you do all kinds of different shit. So is journalism like the first thing you were diving into and doing?
Yeah, definitely out of college. That was my path. I went up to New York. I wrote for Entertainment Weekly. I was on staff there. My original passion was the movies, and specifically the movie industry. So all through college, like I had this blog that all my friends gave me shit for called The Box Office Junkie.
Hell yeah.
And I would do almost like fantasy box office, where I would predict how much money the top 10 would make each weekend. And that's how I learned about video making a lot, was I would film that, which now, knowing what I know about YouTube, not a great strategy, because you're only giving that video like 2 days of shelf life to succeed, of like, how much do I think they're going to make this weekend? Why would you watch that a year from now?
Yeah.
But I would do that. And then on Sundays, I would do a wrap up video of how much money the movies had made. And I, at some point in like 2009, made a video called I Want an Internship at Entertainment Weekly. And I tweeted it at all of their writers, and it made it like this one guy, Michael Ausiello, retweeted it, and it made it all the way to the editor-in-chief. And that guy messaged me and was like, hey, you should come up here and interview. And so I did an internship up there and then got hired after college, but it was interesting. Yeah, I kind of like got thrown. I didn't go to journalism school or anything. I just had a blog. They were like, can you send us some like published pieces of yours when I was interviewing? And I was like, I mean, does a blog count?
Yeah.
Like I've never been published by someone else, but here's 700 pieces of my writing if you're interested in it. And that was interesting, because it was certainly a fast track, and it was also a huge target on my back that created a lot of resentment from me, because a lot of people on staff didn't like that I had been kind of plucked off the internet and given a staff position at a big national magazine.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, in hindsight, getting thrown into the deep end. And I'm thankful for my time there and learned a ton, but also glad to kind of control my own platform now.
Yeah. Were you a WordPress guy when you were doing the blog? Because that's where I was. I had a sports blog around that same time. I was in middle school, like high school. I think I was in the 6th grade when I started. I used to just blog about I was a sports was my thing. I didn't really get into the country music thing until later. But like, I remember just being a kid, and my friends would also give me shit for it a little bit. They're like, dude, why aren't you coming out here? Why aren't you online playing Call of Duty with us? Why are you writing a 1,200-word blog post about CC Sabathia signing with the New York Yankees? And I'm like, dude, it just feels great.
It's like, dude, I got to make my DVD and Blu-ray sales chart for the week. That was mine. It's like every Wednesday I post the Blu-ray sales.
Do you miss the movies being what they were like when we were kids and growing up? Because like the movies and just the whole industry's changed now.
Yeah, I think I mean, yes and no. I guess I miss it. Although we're in the midst of Avatar 2 having a surprisingly good run at the box office
like
after a disappointing start. So maybe they're back.
$1 billion, right? Is that
It's at 1.4 billion worldwide.
Jeez.
And it's like trending like 50% ahead in the US of where the first Avatar was. And so I still have a little bit of that juice left in me. But no, I loved going to the movies with friends. For me, it was... I don't know. I don't know that it's how my sister, I have a way younger sister. Okay. I don't know that this is how she relates to her friends and her own adolescence, but getting dropped off at the movies was like such a rite of passage, and like seeing Zoolander and then loitering in Barnes and Noble afterwards while someone
Blue Steel.
Yes. Like there was a mall nearby. So like your options after the movies were either go loiter in Barnes & Noble and ride the escalators up and down until some associate told you to leave, or walk over to the mall and go to Cold Stone and like keep tipping them until they had to, like, you know how they have to sing when you tip them at Cold Stone?
Yeah.
And then we would go to Brookstone and just sit in all the massage chairs until,
I did that too.
Those were like a big part of being 13.
Yeah, that was the 90s kid in the mid 2000s.
Yes.
That was the experience. We used to sneak in. We used to you buy the classic, you buy the ticket for the one movie, but you end up seeing like 2 or 3 throughout the day.
I was much more
I did
of
that
a goody two shoes than that.
And then the sketchy candy store in the shopping center next to the movie theater, and you wear that North Face jacket that your mom thinks Grady's bundling up, but no, Mom, I'm just trying to sneak in Butterfingers and the little Crunch Bunch things.
See, I couldn't have. I was so, that would make me, I would have like burst into flame if I had tried to do that.
Really?
I'm not a rule breaker. I've become more of one as I've gotten older.
I was going to say, yeah.
But I was not at that age, not at all.
And you're from Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. And so I think we're opposites when it comes to, I don't know if you're a big sports guy. I grew up a big Virginia Tech fan. And I believe you're a Charlottesville guy, right?
I'm from Richmond, but I went to school at UVA.
Okay.
And so and then I lived in Charlottesville for like the past 8 years right before moving here. So, but honestly, like I feel zero allegiance to them. I'll never give them any money.
Well, they have so much
so
money.
I'm fine to support you in your Tech fandom.
Yeah, and it's
maybe that's sacrilege, but no love lost between me and the university.
Yeah, we actually were out in Richmond. We did a show out there with Trey recently, which I did shows out there with Muscadine back in the day too. Where there's a theater out there.
The National?
The National. I did the National with Muscadine.
That's like the coolest venue.
And then there's a newer spot that's like it's like a step below Brooklyn Bowl, but it's like that concept. It's like
Broadberry?
What the hell was the name of it? It was like a bowling alley, but
River City Roll, right?
River City Roll.
Okay.
And it was like a bowling alley on one side, brick oven pizza. It's like brick oven pizza, bowling, live music in one. And the crowd in Richmond, like there is a cool like music scene out there in Virginia. And you have West Virginia right over there. You have Kentucky right there. Like you've got a nice little mix of different styles of music.
I'm glad you noticed, because it is like so the thing to do on every tour, to just leapfrog over the entirety of Central Virginia and just go either from like Charlotte to DC or like Virginia Beach to DC. Yeah. And I'm like, Richmond and Charlottesville are pretty vibrant music scenes.
Jefferson Theater in Charlottesville. Mm-hmm. That's a classic spot.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of people just skip them. So it's fun always when people actually do. Because Charlottesville is interesting. It's a small little town, but you got a stadium where occasionally they do have shows. They had like U2 came and played there when I was in college. And then you've got arenas for the basketball team. And then you've got everything down the line. They have a big amphitheater. And so it weirdly does get pretty good music for being a pretty random town of, I think, like 50,000 people. So, yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy going through there, and it's like on my way home back to New York when I'm doing, which I know you did the drive back from Virginia. And it doesn't, like you said, from a border state. For a border state, it's a relatively long drive because we're in Middle Tennessee. So when I drive up back home to New York, and you take I-81 and you're going through the Blue
You have
Ridge,
to go all the way up through like DC and like.
I avoid that, so I add an extra hour so I don't have to go.
And you
through
just
DC.
go up into Pennsylvania.
I go
and
up
then cut
into
over.
PA, and then you cut all the way across. Hit a couple, maybe hit a Sheets along the way. You know, get them 2-for-1 hot dogs.
Do you remember the first time you ever went to a Sheets?
I do, because I was like, this looks like Wawa, but it's not Wawa, because that's what we had in Jersey.
Okay.
The Wawas. But I was like, wait a second. Like the menu was just great. The breakfast.
Oh.
The bathrooms are light years cleaner than a Wawa bathroom.
Yes.
Which was nice. I was like, this is pretty cool.
I was in Pennsylvania the first time I went to Sheets, and just my mind was blown at the just touchscreen order. I was like, I can order anything and they just make it right here. It felt like the future.
Yeah, and the fact that they're open 24 hours and they've got people like.
Are they still?
Yeah, they've been, as far as I know. I hit one at like 4 a.m. a couple weeks ago.
Dude, that's a dream. I did not know that. And look, there are bigger losses than this throughout the pandemic, but the idea that some of my late night staples, I'm a night owl,
Bro,
like Walmart, are still not open overnight.
Dude, the fact
kill
that
me.
Taco Bell's not open till 3, 4 in the morning anymore. I used to get 3 a.m. Taco Bell all the time.
Taco Bell where I live is open till 3.
Really?
But
Well, you're in like one of the best. Not to give away where you live if you don't want that being public knowledge, but that little circle,
that weird cul-de-sac of fast food restaurants,
cul-de-sac of just fast food, munchy, like degenerate fast food restaurants, where you got Taco Bell, Wendy's, and Mickey D's right next to each other.
Yeah, and Chick-fil-A across the street.
The street.
Yeah, it's pretty. I just was making egg white bites before moving here. If I was a couple minutes late, because. Yeah, when I moved here, I also discovered that little cul-de-sac of munchies. And I was like, good gracious, I'm eating so badly all the time because it's like across the street.
Yeah, and I actually lost weight when I moved from the north to the south, which I was like, fast food alley, barbecue, like I'm gonna be greasy down here. I'm gonna probably put on about 10, 15 pounds on Uber. But back home, I'm eating pizza, I'm eating bagels, I'm eating a sandwich. Mom's making pasta for dinner. Like it's so beef and potatoes in New York.
Best bagels I've ever had was actually in Cedar Grove, New Jersey.
Yeah.
And I was staying with my friend and his mom was like, oh, I got you tartan ham.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, what the heck is tartan ham? And she's like, you don't know what it is? And I've since learned from Jersey friends that it's just like, you got to get like a ham, egg, and cheese with tartan ham.
Well, so I haven't heard it called tartan ham, but they call it North Jersey, they call it Taylor ham.
No, you're right. Taylor ham.
So this is a big...
My bad.
No, you're good. This is a big discrepancy in the state of New Jersey. And Jersey, a very aggressive place. It's in between New York City and Philadelphia, which to me, like but they have millions of people in such a small state, kind of like the DC area where it's just very congested. So in South Jersey, they call it pork roll, which is technically the term for what it is. That's like bacon. So like that bacon is bacon, but you have Oscar Mayer, you have like different styles of it. Taylor is one of the brands. Now Taylor is only available really in North Jersey, so they call it Taylor ham. And then North and South Jersey both agree that Central Jersey doesn't exist.
Okay.
I went to college in Central New Jersey because that was our radio station. Today's hits, yesterday's favorites, Magic 98.3, Central Jersey's music station. And some people would call it Taylor ham, some people would call it pork roll, but people will legitimately like argue over Taylor ham or pork roll. But yes, Taylor ham on a bagel is like, it's just like a salty, greasy breakfast.
Totally.
meat.
I remember getting a French toast bagel with Taylor ham.
Oh, French toast bagel.
Oh yeah, and I was like, this is extravagant. I was in college in Jersey for the first time, and I was like, I love Jersey. So anyway, I believe it. I believe that you ate badly there.
Yeah. Did you? So how many years did you live up in New York? Because you started out in Virginia. You were out in the Midwest for a little bit too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was just Virginia and New York?
Virginia, then I went straight up to New York. I went to 2011 through like late 2014. So almost 4 years that I was up there, like 3.5, 4 years. And then I came down to Charlottesville again, and then just 6 months ago moved here. So about 4 years up there.
What took you so long to get here, being involved in country as long as you have? Like, what were kind of, because I remember you talked a lot about it, like when you were kind of mulling with the process, like you documented it very well of when you were thinking about coming here and making the move and looking for the apartment and going and touring all the apartments and houses and all that stuff.
And yeah.
What made it to where within the last 6 months you were like, fuck it, let me come out here?
So from the very beginning of ever talking about country, I've always had a somewhat critical take on the industry. Even back when I was at Entertainment Weekly, I started just kind of dipping my toe into writing about country. And some of my original pieces that blew up were, the first one that really was popular was I wrote one way back in like 2012 or 2013 called like How Country Music Went Crazy, a timeline of the genre's civil war. Because at the time it was like Zach Bryan and saying that Jason Aldean's song was the worst song he'd ever heard.
Yeah.
And then you had like Casey Musgraves coming up and singing songs like I Don't Want to Be in Your Good Old Boys Club. And there was just a lot of, it was interesting. And so I've always written about that. And it was really easy to write about that in New York. And it was really easy to write about that when you're 22 and don't know who you're offending. And once you start to get a sense of like, oh gosh, the genre likes to play nice and people like to pretend that everyone gets along, then it's you're a little more reticent maybe to say some of those things. And as like I had transitioned in recent years into being a YouTuber, again, all my most popular videos are negative. Even though I believe I'm a quite positive person.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
The things that people know me for are things like why country music was awful in 2013. This beat is killing country music.
Yes. Yeah.
All my most popular things are sort of negative in tone, and that's, sort of why people value me, or at least that's what I gather from the fact that there's so many views on stuff like that. And I think I've always feared, to answer your question, that if I came to Nashville, I'd feel censored or bridled or unwilling to be so open.
Be a critic.
Yeah, because like I don't want to offend the publicist next door. And I that just fear of like, well, what good would come from being in the center of the industry that I'm trying to tell the truth about? And like, I'll be compromised. I'll get invited to some party, and that guy was actually really nice. And now I don't want to say that his song sucks. And and there's some truth to that. That's kind of like if you've ever seen Almost Famous. That's like what that whole movie's about.
Yes, yeah.
You can't fly too close to the sun. You can't be friends with these people. And yet, at the same time, I don't know that the paradigm of journalism that I learned up in New York, where there is a lot more of a separation of church and state. Like, I wasn't allowed to review any album of someone I'd interviewed in the last 3 years.
Yeah, that's how it is up there. Yeah,
and because they don't want you to be compromised. But it's like I've just watched that wall evaporate. Now it's weird when you are like more of an influencer and you can interview someone and then turn right around and act like they don't exist and review their album. And I've had to do that a few times. Like, Kip Moore was the first kind of big person that ever came on my channel. And then I think I didn't like his next single. And you always get a few comments that are like, you're so ungrateful. And it is confusing to kind of navigate. You're like, maybe I am ungrateful, maybe, but no, I almost make myself be a little bit more negative.
Well, people like going to you too because you kind of curate in a way. You curate, like people like hearing what you are into in a way. They
Yes.
like getting your thoughts on this, and people that are especially as deep thinking when it comes to the country music genre, they're going to go to you because of how deep thinking you are. Because there's lots of platforms out there and there's lots of resource out there to find new music and lots of commentary within country music. But like you said, a lot of it's just copy and paste the press release that the XYZ PR company sends.
Oh,
Not
totally.
honest journalism, not honest opinionated editorial pieces, whether that's video, written, blog post, whatever. So that's to me like what you bring. And you've introduced you've been a kind of the last few years, like the rise of guys like Zach Bryan, Charles Wesley Godwin, which I know is another proud Appalachia guy, and seeing that kind of subgenre within country music come up, and you've documented that really well. What's that kind of been like to watch? And I know you got to do that interview with Zach Bryan, right?
Totally.
Which is a huge thing because that was
the only interview of Zach for a long time. That was the only on-camera interview of him till like this year. So that kind of rode for 3 years of just like it bombed out of the gate. And I was like, man, I really thought the hype was real on this guy. And then like over time, I was like, okay, I was right.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's been very validating to my gut in a way. Like I've just. When you talk to people a lot of times in the music industry, they're just obsessed with data. And when you say things like, I promise you this guy Zach is happening, like I can just tell. I've never been DM'd by so many people that are like, dude, you got to check out Zach Bryan, which still to this day, people DM me like they're first on the case. They're like, dude, have you heard of Zach Bryan? I'd love to hear you talk about him on your channel. And I'm like, there's not much more I could do. Okay.
Yeah.
There's says a lot of dedicated videos on the channel, but when you try to tell people that, like a few years ago, they're like, well, does he have a single out? Like, what are his streams like? And you're like, no, it's just videos on YouTube right now. But I just promise you, like everywhere he goes, he just completely sells it out. People are obsessed with him. They love him. His writing is amazing. And I think it's been validating over the last couple years to just realize, oh, I'm not crazy. Like, this stuff really is happening. I'm watching the numbers go up. Now they're getting the streams, and now suddenly they're the cool kids, and everyone is chasing, like, how do we get this gritty sound? And stuff like Zach Bryan. And so it's just been cool to realize, like, yeah, you can trust your gut. If the thing happening right in front of your eyes is happening, just trust yourself.
Yeah. Do you think part of Zach getting to where he's at was kind of that opening in that part of that subgenre with Tyler and Sturgill falling off a little bit, where there needed to be that next guy that came up? Or do you think it's just that there's enough of a difference between a guy like Tyler Childers? Because I've had people ask me this, and I've got my thoughts on it. Like with because there are a lot of kind of those similarities with the honest writing, that grittiness. The fan bases are very similar of Childers and a guy like Zach Bryan.
Yeah, I've never been. A lot of people try to, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but a lot of people try to hold that against Zach. And I'm like, he put it right there on the first freaking song on the first album. He's like, got that line. It's like, let's all gather around where we can all sing Childers.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that's like the first thing out of his mouth. He's not trying to deny that is someone that he's inspired by. And so I think that, but I do also think that those guys are quite the kind of earlier generation. I would say Isbell, Childers, Sturgill would be kind of the trifecta of that kind of the early rumblings of this kind of indie country revolution.
Yeah. Would you put Turnpike in there too?
Yes.
As a band, yeah.
They kind of all, for whatever reason, are a bit almost like against their own spotlight. They're very anti-establishment for the most part, or at least have always been very anti-establishment. But I do think they kind of like slowed down. They weren't ready to scale. And Zach, I think, might be that 1 in a million person that just was more comfortable scaling. I've thought a lot about this recently, like wondering if it was maybe his time in the Navy that made him so prepared to take off like a rocket ship. Because most of the people in this kind of scene that we're discussing, that is more the independent scene, they tend to be shyer souls. They tend to not really trust their own success. They're a little bit sad boy and struggle with like self-worth and should I really be taking off this quickly? And if I am, and if the radio is playing me, am I now feeding the beast that I came here to fight? Like, I wonder if Zach is that unusual person where maybe because he was so used to having to have all of these delegated duties to all of these different people around him in the Navy, maybe he's like that one person that can actually really cope well with it and just say, yeah, I signed a deal. Now it's your job to do this and your job to do this. And he just kind of continues living, because the vibe I get from his label and from the people around him are that they're chasing him always. Like, they're letting him do whatever he wants and they're trying to play catch up.
I mean, the name of the live record.
I'm sure they didn't want that.
No, but look at what it did, and that to me was just such a great sound. Like I haven't had the opportunity to go to a Zach Bryan show, and I know those are those. You've how many have you been to now?
I've just been to 2.
Just been to 2. So I know you did the one in South Carolina, Greenville Country Fest.
I've been to 3 then. Greenville Fest and Richmond, and I also saw him in Franklin.
Oh, so he was in town when we were in Greenville?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, we played it at the Blind Horse Saloon in Greenville the same night as that festival.
Well,
we had a Trey Lewis show the same night as that.
Did you still end up like selling a good number of tickets?
We still ended up having like I think like 600-700 people in there.
Okay, nice.
South Kakalaki loves them some Trey. It was a wild night. But so what was like the smallest room you saw Zach Bryan in?
Oh, I also saw him at the Station Inn. They did this like little secret show for.
I think I remember that because I remember you and Meg Maroney. Yeah, which Meg's a good friend of the program too.
Oh, heck yeah, that's where I met her. We were like seated right beside each other. I remember I had like I felt like such a dork because I had this book about Machiavelli. This like 16th century Italian philosopher. It was like in my pocket, and I was like, I'm sitting down next to Megan Maroney whipping out my Machiavelli biography while we're
Zach
seeing
Bryan show at the Station Inn of all places.
I know. So that's the smallest room I've ever seen him in, and I'm sure we'll ever see him in.
Yeah, because I think
it's the smallest room he's ever played.
Yeah, well, I got to think like early, like when he first got out and started posting videos, he had to have done some like.
No, he did like a couple shows because he was active till last year. All
that shit, all those videos, like Heading South and all of that stuff was coming out when he was still.
Yeah.
So he was just posting that from like the barracks or wherever he was living.
Yeah, where
or-
people could like film stuff. A lot of them are like he's just like sweaty on his back porch, and a lot of them. And then I think because I remember even when he made his Opry debut, they had to like get a letter of I don't know what the technical term is, but they had to like ask, they had to petition the Navy essentially to let him have a leave in order to come play the Grand Ole Opry.
Jeez.
And I think they granted that. So, yeah, I think all that he really has not had the ability to even tour until this year, and
has had probably one of the most successful first years of touring in history.
yeah,
It's insane, and it's crazy to see. It's really cool to see like country be at kind of the like there being guys and girls that are starting to become in a way like bigger than country music in a way, using that term. Like seeing Zach have that hit that. Well, like I know he hit the Billboard Hot 100 like #1 today. I think was when they announced that on Airplay, or it might have even been a few
Hot
days-
Country Songs.
Hot country songs. That's what
Yeah.
it was. But then to see what guys like Morgan are doing with the amount of selling with world tour stadium shit, like we have multiple guys doing what Garth was doing in the 80s and 90s. Like
I think it's cool. It just seems that there is a recognition right now that you don't actually have to play the sort of standard issue radio promotional method game.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's been a lot of people saying that for so long, for like a decade, being like, can we just like let artists be cool
like
and
Bailey
do what they
Zimmerman,
want?
like Bailey Zimmerman, prime example, dude.
And then I think you see a lot of people that sign a deal. They're buzzy, they're cool, they sign a deal. And there's innumerable examples of this over the years. And then the label's response is often like, let's wait, let's find the right time to go to radio, let's get the right songs. And these people get stuck in almost a mindset of they're getting A&R'd to death. And over 2 years, all of the spunk and the soul that made them who they are is squeezed out of them as they're trying to find the right single that's going to make them happen. And they start talking in this robotic way of saying, you know, I'm really looking for things with tempo right now. And you're like, you think tempo is going to be what makes anyone fall in love with you?
Yeah.
No, you're like, what was that soul that you had? And it's so frustrating to watch those people have the passion squelched out of them. And so I think when you see, it's very inspiring to see someone like Zach, even someone like Bailey. I think like it's a slightly less organic rise.
Yeah.
Not that it's an inorganic rise. I'm just
Yeah.
saying like Zach's is truly like out of obscurity.
110%. Yeah.
And, but I think it's just really cool that it's almost like the labels are realizing even a little bit, or they're starting to, we don't know everything. And instead of making all these artists we sign go back to the drawing board and figure out who they are and how we're going to market them, maybe we can just add wind into the sails of something that's already happening.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. And it's kind of cool now that artists can have an Instagram account, can have a TikTok account, and if something blows up, the labels can't just sit there and be like, hey, we got you on the shelf. If you got a video that blows up and gets 3-4 million views, the label's gonna be like, okay, we got, like, the artists can kind of do it in a way themselves with getting shit out there. They don't just have to
Totally.
wait for, whereas
which
like,
I think some artists don't like.
some
I think-
some artists hate having to do it.
Yeah.
But some artists that really like doing it. I mean, do you think like an artist like 10 years ago that was like, say a group like the Swan Brothers, for example, look, they got off
Yeah.
just a rant.
No, I like it. No, I like it. I'm like, oh, that's a fun one.
Yeah, like Swan Brothers. Would you imagine they had social media to kind of help carry them past their first, like they had the 2 hits, they went on the tour with Carrie Underwood, they went on like the Blake Shelton tour, but they never got to like that next step. And then there's just that over time, like you said, just that kind of like fizzle. Like, do you like imagine an act like 10, 15 years ago had that ability to kind of have it in their own hands, control their own destiny?
Yeah, I think it would be cool if they did. Because I think honestly, it's probably really hard for a lot of these people who have been used to being marketed to the idea that the ball's in my court and I have to market myself now. For some of them, and you can generally tell who it is, there's people that seem a little bit distant in their own social media. And when they post, it's always like, stay tuned, I have an announcement in 2 days. And then they're like, I'm going to go play the Today Show concert series. And you're like, well, who cares?
Yeah.
You know what that's not going to do? Anything.
It's not going to sell tickets.
And
not
you
gonna
even look on iTunes and you're like, playing the Today Show, that doesn't do anything but get you from like number 100 on iTunes to number 78.
Yeah.
And you know the amount of money they spend. And so these are these traditional marketing techniques that I think some artists have almost been trained to think that this is what works and this is what it is to be a star.
Yeah.
And in reality, you could spend literally 1% of that money to just set up your phone with a ring light and do something kind of funny on TikTok, and it will move the needle more. And that's sort of, I think, almost something that a few of them don't accept as being a reality and prefer to play dress up as a star.
Yeah, but there's some artists that I think are like the older school that are doing well, are doing a good job.
Totally.
Of it.
I'm trying to convince Brad Paisley's team to be like, you should be pushing TikTok. He's the most naturally funny person I've ever interviewed.
That was, and again, going back to the advent calendar, because I did enjoy a lot of those moments. I remember watching, because I had a country radio show in college. That's kind of how I got started doing this whole thing. And I would watch all the award shows and like kind of like pay attention to the scene of that right from like 2013 to 2017 was when I really started getting into it. So I remember Brad and Carrie hosting the award shows, and they were fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And Brad is like, you have such a personality within him. Like, why not showcase?
He could do that. He could even be like the king of guitar talk if he doesn't even want to be funny. I'm like, he's just an unbelievable. Not many people are pickers like that anymore, and so he could run that scene because that's a whole big clique of TikTok as well.
He had one of the greatest country music videos of all time with So Much Cooler Online with Taylor Swift and Kelly Pickler dancing and George Costanza, Jason.
Maybe that's
Jason
my angle
Alexander.
to get them to do it. To be like, look, you're making a mockery of this song by not being cooler online. Because you're currently not cool online if you're not running TikTok.
There it is. That's a clip right there, McElway. Mark that right there. That's a fucking clip, boy. But hell yeah.
Hey, we like you. You're cool.
Yeah. Talking about artists doing it kind of their own way. I mean, we're hanging out at the Muscadine show here a couple weeks ago, and they're guys that you've been talking about for a long time. They're guys that are obviously very, very close to me. Without them, I wouldn't be out touring and doing what I do. What's it been like watching them kind of come up too? Because you've watched them from the Portsmouth Angel days.
They've been to my house in Virginia even and done like a janky little interview with me there. No, it's been super cool watching Muscadine take off because and take off on their own terms completely.
Literally.
Some people that, depending on your definition of what success is, would say that they haven't happened yet. And I think that's ludicrous because look, they don't have a big radio single, but they like own everything that they do.
I don't think they want the radio single. They'd rather sell out clubs and theaters and own everything and have one of the most passionate fan bases in country music.
If you could have all of it, I'm sure that would be the ideal.
Well, have all of it, but I'm saying like you have they sell out those VIP packages, bro. Hundreds of people every week.
So I love it. I think they're insanely successful. I think I've just been talking to too many people in the A&R world lately that are, super data nerds and are like, oh, but do they have any number ones? Do they do this? And I'm like, no, not necessarily your metrics of what success are, which often have to do with the radio, but in like the real world of moving tickets, of gaining fans, of having people listen to the words that you're saying, they pass with flying colors. And their live show is awesome and they're funny. I just think they're doing everything right. And it's funny because I think it took them a while to figure themselves out. I think it was
COVID. I think it was during COVID and having that time to go home to the family in Alabama and Mississippi, go out in the woods, spend time not touring and really having that time to reflect. Because remember, their sound just changed from that.
Totally.
Burn It At Both, from what it was like all those EPs to Burn It At Both Ends to Dispatch to what's coming on this Teenage Dixie record. Like their whole style's just
also
evolved.
knowing them we've known them for a while. Like I've known them since the cover days. They've always been able to move tickets. They started a long time ago with opening for Luke Combs and Riley and like all these theater shows, and just like ever since then it's been a slow build, but now they're like right there. Like they can move these tickets in like 2,000 to 3,000 cap rooms and
easily,
like super easy. I think and then they've known all the people like Lainey Wilson and who else have they had on here lately?
Like Jordan
Yeah,
Fletcher.
Jordan
Fletcher and
Fletcher
all
was
them.
Jordan Fletcher was their damn merch guy.
Yeah.
Which to me is what I love as a former Muscadine merch guy. We're in that Muscadine merch guy fraternity, which I love. But yeah, like that. What's cool too is like seeing how their class of the guys and girls that were moving to town around the same time as them, like that 2016 of Combs, Riley, Ray Fulcher, Laney Wilson, Gary and Charlie. I mean, even Wallen and Hardy and all those guys were coming to town around that same time. Like to see where all those guys are at, the development of the last 6-7 years.
I think what's cool about them too is and this is where I really relate to them, just interpersonally, is I think the same way that I kind of went into the belly of the beast and like worked in media and learned a lot, but also learned what I didn't want to be. I feel like they kind of, when they moved to town, and they don't speak ill of it at all, but they like were doing stuff with Creative Nation and working with Luke Laird, and they really learned like the machinations of the industry and what it is to be a big hit songwriter. And I think kind of realized as much as they had to learn, they also learned that's not necessarily the path that we want to take.
Yeah.
And so they're very savvy in kind of pivoting. And I think also seeing, man, this honky tonk sound is kind of cooler than like when people told me about Muscadine at first, frankly, I liked it. This was like early days, but I was like, okay, it's like 20% better than like most country music. And now I'm like, oh, it's like 150% better than a lot of
They were like a countryer Dan and Shay with the harmonies.
Yes. Yeah. That's kind of where I think it started. And now it's just so many miles away from that and more adventurous. And anyway, I think they kind of, I agree with you. They learned really who they are, what they're about, and then went for it with full ownership of it.
And they self-produce themselves. Like they work with Ryan Yeomans. And I don't know if you know this. You familiar with Tyler Halverson? Has he crushed your?
Literally as of this weekend.
Really?
I just heard a song. Well, it's funny because I remember, I don't know if he sent it to me or someone else did, but a long time ago, I heard some song called Beer Garden Baby, and I was like, I like that song. But that's literally in one ear, out the other. I just forgot about it.
Yeah.
And then this weekend, I heard whatever his duet is with Kylie.
Your Bar Now.
Yeah. And
Taking my ass back to Midtown.
And I really liked it.
Yep.
And so I guess as of 3 days ago, I'm into Tyler Halverson.
Yeah, so Tyler's been one of our good buddies for a while, and he's like in that crew of the young. I call me and Nikki T call him the young Americana kids in a way, and Tyler's more Western because he's from South Dakota, has been out in Texas for a while, but it's like Tyler Halverson, Ben Chapman, Meg McCree, Vinny Paolizzi, Nate Frederick, Job Fortner, like that crew of guys and girls. And Tyler's stuff is produced by Ryan Yeomans, who produces Muscadine, and Gary for Muscadine. Like Gary is a co-producer of, which is really cool that there's just that. And then they're bringing out guys like Ben Chapman on the road, and like they're kind of seeing like kids that remind them of them and doing it the way they want to do it, not being super authentic. And they're kind of investing in those kids in a way.
Totally.
Which is really cool to see as well.
Yeah, it's been interesting.
Just like BJ Barham invested in them. Like American Aquarium. Them in American Aquarium, BJ, super tight. BJ's a cool dude too.
I've never actually gotten to meet him, and
Really?
I probably said 25 times on my channel that he's like, well, I think one of the best living songwriters. And
you and him together having a conversation would be insane because he's very opinionated, intellectual as well. I want to see a Grady. I want to see a Grady Smith American Aquarium interview.
Yeah, we see the world quite differently,
which is why I want to see it.
Yeah, but then we also see something like we both have. I think we're both quite anti-establishment, but it manifests like sort of differently on a lot of subjects. So I think I'd love it. I mean, I love his writing and his music so much.
Yeah. So who are some of your favorite? What's been the biggest thing about living in Nashville that's like surprised you? Aside from what you were talking about earlier with kind of being like, what's it going to be like to be in the mouth of the beast, saying the shit that I say, being honest?
Well, I can't believe how much I like it, and I can't believe how down-to-earth people are here. I am just used to people feeling way more like a storm cloud all the time. I think I came here from a college town, and you aren't really supposed to feel like that proud of yourself or that like happy all the time. That's not the currency in Charlottesville, Virginia.
No. So
I remember even when my first when my Snapchat video went viral, all my friends truly meaning it, and this is what it is to be a good friend in Charlottesville, and this is kind of how I am. They were like, "Do you feel like this is going to be good for you? Like you've talked about like kind of wrestling with pride before. Do you feel like having like a viral video is going to make that like worse or better. And in Nashville, they're just like, dude, let me buy you a drink. That's awesome. You hit 1 million views.
Congrats.
And it's kind of been weird. I'm like, wait, that feels so nice that people just sort of think a little bit more simply and down to earth here and just tell you to be happy about succeeding. I didn't really trust it for the first few months. And every single person I met was like, you're like successful and people like you. And I'm like, that's not true. And they've really had to convince me that it is, and that I maybe have some self-doubt issues. And so I think just the positivity of this place has really thrown me for a loop. And it's almost made me, I don't know, it's just softened me a bit where I'm like, it's a nice feeling for people to be nice to you and for people to encourage you. And then like I'm probably never going to be so much that way. I'm a bit moody and darker, but people find that refreshing here. They're like, oh, dude, you see the world so differently. So it's kind of a win-win. It's like I'm feeding off their positivity and they're feeding off my negativity. And it's honestly refreshing. Like this is the most down-to-earth city I've ever lived in.
Yeah, I mean, I came from so I'm from Rockland County, which is like 30 miles outside the city. So like where the Tappan Zee Bridge is at, Nyack, like that section. So to come, obviously, New York, very hard-nosed, go to college in Jersey, work in Jersey for a while, live in Jersey for a little bit, and then come down here. And it was like a weird kind of thing for me, too. Coming from the Northeast to down here,
What was so different?
Well, my first year in town, I bounced on Broadway. Like, I moved down here on a Thursday. I moved down here the Thursday before of Halloween weekend. The next night I was out with some buddies, and then I was They handed me a security shirt and a walkie-talkie at Dirk Bentley's Whiskey Row, and I was a bouncer for a year. I'd never bounced a day in my life. I'd been into some shit when I used to drink, but I'd never like bounced. And so I saw like the worst side of the tourism of Nashville for about a year.
Interesting.
I worked the front door and would catch fake IDs and deal with the homeless problem that we have here and deal with drunk idiots from concerts and games and this and that. But I also got to meet a lot of musicians, and I got to meet a lot of the guys and girls that were busting their asses on Broadway, and meet the sound guys that are now production managers like Tyler Lassard, Boudreaux, as we used to call him. He used to do the podcast with me, and he was a sound guy at Whiskey Row. He got hired to do the Muscadine gig, and that's how I ended up on the Muscadine gig. So Broadway was like, Broadway was definitely like, I wasn't able to go to Whiskey Jam because I was working downtown on Monday night. I wasn't able to like be fully in the community because I was downtown so much. But then once I got into that community, like you said, I was like, damn, people are really welcoming. Other guys and girls that do rounds are like, dude, we love what you're doing. We love what you're doing for the community. Whereas they're hosting, like me and Rob Snyder are good buddies. He used to have Revival down at Tin Roof. Same night I'd have my stuff at Live Oak. You would think we'd be like rivals or competitors, but we would book it to where we would look at it like, hey, if you're going to be busy at your bar, there's going to be overflow to this bar and vice versa. Like, it's just, everybody wants the community to succeed, like Ward, even, for example, like Ward Gunther, I call him the Godfather.
Totally. I call him the mayor.
If he ran for mayor, we joke that Ryan Nelson should run for mayor, but if Ward legitimately, like, the city of Nashville would not be the same without him, especially what we do in music. But like, he's a guy that I look up to and that is welcomed with open arms. Like you said, the community factor here is just unlike other cities. Like New York City doesn't have that. It might in like hipster out around NYU or like in the Village, or you're hanging out in Williamsburg. There's obviously some communities there, but like, it's just a different kind of feel. Like, I didn't expect.
But I honestly feel like my New York experience is more aligned, like, ideologically with Nashville than.
Really? How so?
I think that the worst place on earth is Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So the closer that you get,
boy.
you have to hate Washington, D.C. if you're from Virginia. It's like an important rite of passage, and everything everyone says is true. It's like all networking.
What's worse, D.C. or Baltimore?
D.C.
I got told
Baltimore?
At least Baltimore will, look you in the eyes while ruining your life. In DC, they'll just like create a narrative that all of the proper people will quietly believe and just ice out anyone that they don't like. It's the worst place ever. Everything, the way that politics just like infects the ways that interpersonal relationships kind of play out. I really think
and you have a lot of poverty for the capital city of the country. There's some rough areas of DC.
Okay, so I once heard a talk, and they boiled every city down to a central value. It was so interesting. So they're like, what does each city value the most? And like they're like, some of these are easy. L.A. fame, Miami sex,
yes,
and New York. They said the central value was like hustle. And in DC, they said the central value was influence. And I think that it's like a very insidious one that I think shapes a lot of like Northern Virginia thinking and philosophy. It's a very kind of sly, I don't know.
I'm Arlington, Fairfax, like those areas are the people in those areas. Like you go to the pool club in Fairfax, Virginia, you're going to meet some folks that are
totally. And I'm not saying that's not exactly the world I'm from.
No,
but because it is. Oh, sorry. But I'm just glad to be done with it. So I'm in my like weird like realizing I'm slightly bitter towards Virginia phase of my life now.
You don't go back and appreciate it at all? Because like I hated New York City growing up. I used to say to my mom and my dad, I wish the city could float away. Leave Yankee Stadium, Madison Square Garden, but like float away. Just because again, like the traffic, the chaos, the crime, the this, the that. Then I moved away, and now when I go back, it's like I have to go up and see my brother in Brooklyn at least once. Like while on a trip home, like I have to go into the city at least once or twice. Like you don't have any of those feelings towards DC?
No, like literally no, I don't. I'm from like a little bit further south than that.
Yeah,
but like,
you are, yeah.
Wait, what's the central value of wherever you're from in New Jersey? If you had to boil it down.
Ooh, so where I'm from is it's like pizza. But
pizza family. I'm trying to think of Jersey Shore words. Tanning.
Penne alla vodka. But where I was from, it's like, so you know where Westchester is?
Yeah.
Westchester. I'm just across the river from that. So I'm on the Jersey side of the Hudson River, like in New York. So like take the Garden State Parkway. I'm like the second exit over the border.
Okay.
Like where the Palisades Mall's at, if you know where that is.
Yeah, I had a car when I lived in New York.
Okay, so you've been to the Palisades Mall. So
me and my friends would always go on field trips over to the Palisades.
Yes, so the Palisades,
and eat at Cracker Barrel. I don't know why that was our routine. We would go to the Palisades and then go eat at Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, Cracker Barrel was in. Yeah. So like, I was from there, so it's like a well-off New York City suburb.
Yeah,
with like maybe like one not so great area, but it's all the folks that work in New York City but want to have families not in New York City. Okay. So it's that lot of bar and bat mitzvahs, a lot of like well off to do, like that kind of area. So it's like we were actually top 10 remember when that Ashley Madison list came out?
Wow.
We were a top 10 population for Ashley Madison users in like my home county. It's Rockland County is the name of the area.
Why? Like because of the proximity to New York? Do you think people were coming from New York to go to Ashley or to like? I guess none of those things actually resulted in very real affairs because the vast majority of them were just like chat relationships.
Yeah, it was just fucked up stuff. But I think it's a lot to do with the culture of like guys that are NYPD detectives, people that are nurses, people that work on Wall Street, people that are working late hours in the city. You know, it's that culture, that kind of that like what's the word for it? That risque, like just that New York. Kind of
like seedy.
Yeah, well, like The Sopranos. Like they filmed a lot of The Sopranos like in my hometown.
Interesting.
So like a lot of that kind of thing. So I guess the value, I mean, would say maybe well, but there's that grind too. Like all my buddies grind, but we have like a lot of the union stuff. Like, you know, in the state of New Jersey, you know, the number one employer is I think this is the stat. The state of New Jersey. It's the state of New Jersey.
Okay.
Because each town has like the town government. They have these things called freeholders, and there's like 15 of them in each town. So every town in New Jersey, right off the bat, has all those. So there's just so much like weird shit that the way New Jersey's structured is just fucked. Yeah. Every governor's been corrupt.
And having now like, you know, spent my time in that part of the country, it is pretty, I feel bad for your state in how bad of a name the Turnpike gives it. Because it is like a pretty shockingly bad turnpike. And then the rest of the states, actually, I'm like, oh, this is pretty. I see why it's called the Garden State.
Yes.
It's like,
South Jersey's beautiful. You have the mountains of where the AT runs through western New Jersey. It's the lowest part of the AT, but it's still the AT. And then you've got like the shore, but there's that armpit of like Newark,
yeah.
Secaucus.
And everyone's got to drive through it to go to New York.
The oranges are just like the worst. You know, it's just some like wild, wild stuff. Hey, McElwain, I think somebody's at the door, bud. If you want to go do that, we'll just keep rolling. If you want to go answer that, but yeah, it's just it is a wild place because you do have a little bit of everything. So Nashville's been like your favorite place to live. Where's your what's your that's water damage from pipes and stuff in the apartment complex. That's what's going on out there. But how do you see yourself being in Nashville for a while? You think?
Yeah, I do.
This feels like home.
I don't know that it feels like home yet, but it's definitely brought like a totally new energy into my life, and that's been very welcome. So I have no plan to move somewhere else. I mean, my kind of contingency plan was if I really hate Nashville, I'm just going to go to Florida. And I like Florida.
Florida's great.
We love Florida.
Nice.
Have you had the Broadway experience yet?
You've gone out on Broadway.
Yeah.
You have?
I thought you meant like the Florida Broadway experience.
no,
and I was
no,
like,
no,
I don't know
no.
what you mean by that.
I don't know either.
Yeah. Well, have you been to the Floribama?
No.
That's to me is
maybe I've been near there. I went out to
Perdido Key, like down near Pensacola and Orange Beach.
So I got as far as Grayton Beach.
Okay.
I did drive. I spent like 3 weeks last summer down in Orlando was my home base because basically my family had this timeshare that
family time. I know about that.
Like we weren't using it. It was in South Carolina, but then, you know, we the only way to get rid of it was essentially swap it. And the only person in the family that even could go on a vacation was me. And so I was like, well, I'll use it if no one else is using it. It was weird. But I had to get 3 weeks in Orlando. And I made that my home base, and I kind of went around Florida from there. So I went out toward like Apalachicola. That place was cool. Then I went all the way kind of out into the Panhandle.
The Redneck Riviera is what they call that.
I liked it. That was by far my favorite area.
I enjoy it, but you got to go to the Floribama one weekend and just check it out.
Hey, we'll do the Floribama one weekend, and then let's put them on the bus and take them to Tifton and Lakeland to Wild Greg's.
Oh, we brought you to Wild. We'll talk about Wild Greg off the mic. He's wild. He's a character. But Floribama's great because it's like Riley Green wouldn't be Riley Green without the Floribama. Like, to me, that's where all Muscadine too. Like, they actually used to go down there as Charlie and Gary before they were Muscadine. Trey and the guys used to play down there. Like, every act that's come out, like, you feel like you're in a Kenny Chesney song, like you're in Summertime by Kenny Chesney, all times of the year. And they have like 7 stages within the building. I think it's like 6 or 7, maybe like 5, but they've got quite a few stages within the building, and it's just live music and just people on vacation having a blast.
That would be interesting because when I went to Grayton, I hung out a little bit with Brian Kelly down there, and his, like, all the people on that beach, it was not the kind of like young, sexy side of spring break Florida that I kind of imagined, having not ever spent time there. It was like a lot of older, very kind, like just like old, leathery, like nice retirees.
That like dark color red of tan that almost looks like magenta.
Yeah, like Tecovas.
Yeah,
like they
Tecovas
are
boots.
It's like human hide. But those people were literally, as soon as I stepped on that beach, some dude came up to me and literally goes, "Yippee-ki-yay, brother." I was like, "I don't think you've been here before." And I was like, "Who is this man with a puka shell necklace?" He's like, "You ever ridden a YOLO board?" And I'm like, did Brian pay off this person to do like a guerrilla individual marketing campaign about his Beach Cowboy album? Because this sounds exactly like what the album says.
Yeah.
And that guy told me to go ride his paddleboard because I'd never been to this beach before. I don't know how he knew it, but
Did you ride it?
I did. But right before I wrote it, some other old person, this lady, came up to me and just goes, "Sweetheart, the mother in me needs to put sunscreen on you." And she lathered me down. So within like 1 minute, I was like, you know, this is odd. This stranger's telling me to ride his paddleboard as this woman like goops me up. And I'm feeling really welcome. So That's what I don't remember. I guess that was from my childhood. Someone said goop. So my family says that for sunscreen.
But was it like the, so it wasn't even the spray on one. Was it like the old school, like
Definitely.
banana boat, like squirt out, I'm gonna rub you down, boy kind of thing?
Yes. Yeah.
Came from one of those little souvenir shops.
Yeah, it came from one of them little souvenirs. Like
Which I was okay. Here's this is a random fact about me. My favorite scent on earth. Well, I have two, but one of the two is sunscreen, specifically
Really?
Hawaiian tropic sunscreen. I think is like the best smell in the world.
is it just the nostalgia of it, where it makes you feel like a kid going to the pool
I
at
just
the
think
beach?
it smells good. I just like it. I'm like, wow, it's like kind of like coconutty, pineapple-y, like it's yummy.
Would you buy it in a candle?
Okay, so here's the thing. My mother is a candle collector.
Oh shit. Okay.
Like, I'm not kidding you when I say probably at my parents' house, there are probably like 1,500 to 2,000 like unburnt, like big jar candles, and they are burning at all times in like every room.
Where are these candles stored? Where do you store 1,500, 2,000?
It's like a cancer that is just like spreading through the home, like into every like literally when I went up to my bedroom at home, I was just home for Christmas. It was basically like an attic now. There's just like there's a narrow pathway to the bed, but otherwise it's just filled with like random boxes and stuff that they're storing.
I thought you were gonna say like candles. It was just
No,
stacks.
but in my closet now, the top like 3 shelves of my closet have all been claimed by candles. So I actually love. I grew up with a probably overdeveloped sense of smell.
What's your least favorite candle? There's got to be one.
There's one that I really hate
there's got to
called.
be one that you really fucking hate.
I really don't like. There's this one called blueberry maple pancakes, and I don't like berry scents in general. I find them very cloying, and they kind of give me a headache.
Yeah.
But no, it's definitely. If anyone ever comes to my house, I always say, if you want to get in good with my mom, just take a stab at whatever you smell when you walk in. Like, you don't have to get it right, but just try, and they'll be like, "It smells like strawberries in here." And mom will be like, "It's actually winter candy wreath," or something like that. And then she'll like talk all about it. And she really opens up and she loves it. And yeah, so
During COVID, I worked as I called it a candle elf. I was seasonal help at a candle factory
No
here
way.
in Nashville.
what kind? Like soy, beeswax, paraffin?
They're called It's a company called Ranger Station, so it's like all organic. And I wasn't making the wax. They didn't trust me with making the wax. I made the boxes and
Okay.
put the matches inside the boxes. But they're cool. They're like these like organic candles in the sense where it was like what was it? It was something like, I don't know if myrrh is a scent, but it was like that. It was like myrrh. It was like,
So these are like kind of like
bougie.
hipster, nice, understated.
They had one that was called New York City, and I was like,
Okay.
"Oh, this is gonna smell horrible," and it smelled delightful.
Yeah, like Chinatown in the summer.
It smells like the inside of that $20 Gucci bag you bought on Canal Street.
Anyone making a scent based on New York City is definitely just thinking of like the
Yeah,
idea
those-
of like
those
being on the rooftop of the Standard
They
or
had
something.
New York City, L.A., Chicago. They were good. They were good people, like the candle thing. But I did get experience like watching them put the wax in the candles were in these like glasses that could be reused as
Okay.
whiskey glasses.
Yeah.
which was kind of cool too.
If I could make any candle, here's the scent that I've never found and would love. Like my favorite smell, I said that other one was my second favorite. My favorite smell is just like generic mall scent. Like the smell of like super conditioned mall air with like laced with Calvin Klein perfume and Auntie Anne's butter.
Hollister.
Just kind of that.
Abercrombie and Fitch.
That
Hey,
midpoint.
we can do that. And we'll
Some
call
wafting
it snap.
Cinnabon.
The Cinnabon smell, Wetzel's pretzels.
Yeah,
Hey,
all
let's
that.
do that and let's call it Snapchat.
Anyway, that's like that's maybe why I was going to the Palisades. I just needed to get a whiff.
Yeah, dude, that mall is not what it used to be either. That mall when you were there, that mall was still pretty solid. It was when it was built. You know that mall's built on a sinkhole. It's built on landfill. It sinks. You stand on the top floor during the holiday season, and you can feel it shake.
Yikes.
Yeah,
Well,
it was a horrible idea to build. They built it in 1998. I remember my grandpa said he was on the committee for them not to build it because eventually it's going to sink, and it has sunk like feet since then. And he's just like, "See, I told you, it's not good to have there." But the mall thing is. I grew up. It's funny because I didn't know you would go to the Palisades Mall.
I've gone to every mall in this area already. A lot of times I listen to albums in malls. I like just
You just
Google
put the AirPods in and just.
Yep.
Walk
Walmart
around?
and malls is like where it's just nice to sometimes be moving, and if it's like raining or if it's cold.
What's your favorite mall here?
Rivergate.
Rivergate?
I dislike Green Hills a lot.
Green Hills is very pretentious in my opinion.
I had a bad experience at Green Hills that I think colored my whole interaction where I was there was a woman in a scooter passed out outside of Dillard's. I was just walking through the mall, minding my business, listening to a podcast or something, and there's this woman fully passed out or asleep. I don't know, but it's concerning.
Outside of Dillard's of all
and
places.
I was like, ma'am, and I try to wake her, and she doesn't wake up. And then some other lady is like, is she okay? And I was like, I don't know. And so she's like, well, I'm going to try. You go and get someone. So I go into Dillard's, like a makeup counter. And I'm like, ma'am, there's someone out here that I don't know if you have a number for security or something, but I think she might need some attention. And so then I come back out and the lady comes with me and she calls security. And these two women, they were like, I don't know. They were like very peroxide blonde, had like Lululemon on, and were each pushing a stroller. And they just start like yelling at me. They're like, she needs help. And I was like, I know. I'm here doing that. And they're like, well, we have our children, so we can't do anything right now, but you need to help her. And I was like, what? I am helping her. They're like, have you gotten anyone to come get her? And I was like, yes, I've been here for like 5 minutes. And they're like, well, we can't do anything right now because we have our kids. And it was like a weird
like, chill out, Christina.
Power flex.
Yeah.
I know. And I was like, is this how you walk around life? Just yelling at people to do what you, and
Let's go to the mall, push our kids around, yell at people.
but I was like, is this the Green Hills clientele? That happened my first time at Green Hills, and I vowed to like never support it. And I became a Rivergate boy, which is way trashier. There's still like a Spencer's and like it really there's a Journeys, there's a Lids.
Yep.
It feels like what a mall should feel like.
That's
And
what.
I've been to Opry Mills. It's cool. It's like I feel like that's a novelty mall.
Yeah, it's a mini mall. It's in my
Mini?
opinion, like mini. I feel like it's small.
You think Opry Mills is small?
Again, Palisades is my home mall.
Opry Mills is not small.
I think it's. Oh, again, I grew up going to the Palisades where it's 5
You can
floors.
walk. I've put in all 10,000 steps for a day before inside of Opry Mills.
Really?
I got lost in that one.
I think it's like a 0.8 mile loop.
Really?
Yeah.
Doesn't. Well, I guess if.
Look, let's go to Cheesecake Factory soon.
Oh, I'm
And
down. Have you ever been to Cheesecake Factory, McElwain?
I've been, but not there. And also, I want to hit that restaurant at the Bass Pro there too.
There's a restaurant. Okay.
Yeah,
'cause-
you get the alligator bites. We've had them before, but you get those. Like we'll do that too.
Matt's from Selma, Alabama. He's gotten a lot of culture since moving up here to Nashville. He's gotten to experience Chili's for the first time.
Uncle Bud's, baby.
Have you been to Uncle Bud's here in
I
Nashville?
don't know what that is.
Do you like fried food or not really? Not particularly.
2023 Grady does not.
Okay, well, 2023, Matt Burrill has not had a cigarette yet, which has been great.
No way.
I'm
Congrats.
I'm 3 weeks off the cigs, which is
Wow.
huge. I think going home to New York and seeing that they were $15 a pack definitely helped me not smoke when I was home because it's like $6 a pack here, but 15 in New York. But
People often say you have to replace like something like a habit.
So I replaced alcoholism with cigarettes like 6 years ago.
So I'm just saying, like, have you compulsively been playing Minesweeper or something
that would be a good one. I wonder if they have that for the phone. I used to play that shit in like third
J.K.
grade.
Rowling, I remember reading an interview of hers long ago where they talked about like what's your biggest vice, and she talked about quitting smoking and getting obsessed with Minesweeper.
Really?
That's why that came to mind.
I've heard Hank
She's like,
Jing-
the biggest delay in the Harry Potter books was me playing Minesweeper.
Whoa. I did not know that.
Anyway.
Yeah, I've definitely been eating a little bit more, which isn't good, but I feel like the not nicotine stuff, but I'm on an ADHD medication too. So that like Adderall type of stuff, not Adderall, it's called Concerta, but that kind of like helps. So I guess that helps a little bit. I don't know what, I mean, I still have my nicotine. Like I used to call this my truck cigarette or my bus cigarette because I couldn't smoke when I was on the tour bus. So like this is just a little vape, but I was 2 packs a day bro.
Damn.
I was like I was sounding like, what are they selling? They're selling chocolates. Like I was sounding like the chocolate lady from SpongeBob. That's what I was sounding like. And trying to host rounds and do podcasts and do like my personality stuff and having to talk to people at the venues on the road. Like my voice is my moneymaker. That's what I do. And it's like if you're 27 sounding like you're 62, it's not going to be good, you know? I mean, it's like there's works for some guys, like Brantley Gilbert's got that heavy voice, you know? Like he's got that deep, but he's been 2-3 packs for years, you know? Take smoke breaks during the show.
You've never
been a cigarette guy? You've been a cigar guy?
I smoke internationally. I liked cigarettes in another country. I think there's something very romantic about it.
You like the hand-rolled cigarette? You like the quick...
I'm fine with just a pack, but I enjoy just the idea of... I don't even really enjoy it. I just kind of like puffing on it.
You like
and
puffing
standing
on
on like a cobbled street and smoking a cigarette.
You like being in like London or like Germany?
I'm about to go to London.
Oh, you're going to smoke so many cigs?
So many. If I can get through one pack, I'll probably get through like half a pack and then just throw the others away.
So do you have a New Year's resolution for this year?
Not a resolution
or some
per
goal.
se.
I do have
some goals.
What are some goals for you, the channel, like just what you've got going on? What are some 2023 goals for you? Your first full year in Nashville.
Yeah, I think like everyone else, I want to, get fit. But fortunately, I've started that process, not just a couple days ago, but like a month and a half or so ago, kind of started doing some personal training. And,
good. I've been seeing those videos of you just
brutal,
putting in the grind.
Trying to. And it always makes me... So for me, this is going to answer your question. It's going to seem like it's not answering your question, but it will. I was talking to an executive the other day, and he said something... He was like, dude, the hardest part of anything, just getting started, it's like once you have that momentum, so easy to succeed. That's what I tell all my artists. And I said, I literally, like nothing you've ever said, I have related to less. I find starting so easy. I love starting. I love a new project. Even throughout my career, and this isn't meant to sound douchey, like I've just found it kind of easy to have a viral video or make something that a ton of people see, or like I painted something and made it into a puzzle and that sold like incredibly well. And that stuff's cool. But for me, momentum is so much harder. I'm a bit sabotage driven. I don't trust when I'm doing well at all. I kind of like going off the rails. I don't feel good about myself ever. And I am coming off what is easily my most successful period of life I've ever had in the last 2 months. And every part of me wants to destroy it.
Just take the wheel, just go rare.
100%. That's like at my truest internal self. That's all I want to do. And I know logically that does not bring me anything good. I've learned that enough times in life. And then you step back and you're like, man, what? Everything was going so well. Why am I now like depressed and fat and lonely and angry and like feeling like I'm not living up to my potential? All of those things. And I think like I'm trying to break that cycle really hard. So my word for the year is forward. I'm trying to not dwell on anything in the past, just trying to keep it moving, keep going forward. And so part of what I'm doing is like literally learning to, one of my big goals is to actually communicate with the people that I work with. Cause now I'm like working with an editor for the first time in the last couple months. Like I've never had anyone edit my videos till like 3 months ago. And sometimes I just ghost that guy for like 2 weeks and don't tell him anything because I'm like, who is he to be editing for me? I'm probably ruining his life. I don't want to mess up his life and make him edit. I'm not good at being a boss, but I'm trying to remember that's not good to do. Actually, it helps you and it helps him when you have more work to do. Yeah. So respond and communicate. Same with like this producer I'm trying to work with. I want to really scale. I came here to learn to work with others. I don't want to turn 40, 50 years old and be making videos in my bedroom and just reacting to what's going on out in like the country music news of the week. That's depressing to me. So how do I build something bigger, smarter, that actually involves me with other people, put some natural accountability into my life? And so I think I have a few of these, I won't name anything here, but just like a few of these leads kind of, and positive, there's things that have some momentum to them and relationships I've formed here. Let's actually do it.
Yeah.
Let's stop living in theory and actually build the damn thing, or at least try. And if I fall on my face, well, that'll be way more fun than like, I don't know, like depressively scrolling TikTok for 2 hours at the end of a day where you did nothing.
Yeah. Amen. Amen, bro. Amen.
So that's kind of
forward. 2023, the year of going
even
forward.
just like I said no. I think like the first time you or Trey or someone reached out and was like, "Do you want to talk?" I was like, "No." And even just this time saying, you know, what's the big deal? Just go say yes, try new things, do things, meet people, come on a show.
Yeah.
It's for whatever reason quite hard for me. So
yeah, well, dude, I appreciate you coming on, and it means a lot to. I know you're busy and got a lot of shit going on, so it means a lot to have you come hang out here, and it's been a blast having you here in town and getting to hang out at Whiskey Jam and occasional Red Door, having you pop by the round at Live
love
Oak.
the Red Door.
Dude, I love Red Door. I had to bail out of Red Door last night. Sometimes when I do the rounds and like they're busy and like you're just constantly talking to people, and this will be my sounding. I'm not trying to sound douchey, but like you get a lot of people that come up to you and be like, "Hey man, how do I play the round? Hey man, I'd love to play the round. Hey man, this, and then you go to Red Door and it's like I tell people at the end of the round at Live Oak, "Hey everybody, the bartenders want to get out of here. We're gonna go to this degenerate bar up the road that stays open till 3:00 in the morning called Red Door. The bartenders are gonna go with us once they clean up. Close your tabs so they can close, and we're all gonna go to Red Door." So then those same people just bog you there. So I left early, but old sweet boy there, so he stays here at the studio a lot. We have a little like through that bathroom.
I'm locked in here for the next like 3 days.
Yeah, well, he's practicing on his drums, but there's a little bedroom in that through this bathroom over here in the closet for where like any of our Alabama crew that comes up that works with Trey will stay in there. But McElwain, since he lives in Hermitage, he'll be able to go out on Demumbrian or on Division, get hammered, and he can just walk from Red Door here to the podcast studio.
Oh, boom.
So I left him there. I think
it's like a little like sleeping locker.
It's his fun house. Yeah, he's the set manager, the studio manager, but he is we're Red Door regulars. Red Door to me is just great. That's the communal. It's perfectly located in between what's on Demumbrian, what's on Division. It's just a great place to end the night. I want the kitchen open back up, and I want to know when they're going to open up that fucking expansion.
Yeah, it is funny because I've only lived here as long as that expansion has been there, and I'm like, what's this weird part of this bar that just you can't get to? I see it there.
And the reason they don't have food anymore is because they used to serve all the food out of a food truck that they would run, so the food would be made in this little like greasy like trailer and then would get run up into the restaurant, and there would be a food runner or a server or something.
So after New York, I had like years of like odd jobs, and I managed a taco restaurant in Virginia for like 2 years.
What was the name of it?
Brazos Tacos. And every freaking Texan in the area would come by and be like, you know, it's actually pronounced Brazos. And I'd be like, it's actually Spanish. Get over yourself. But like Brazos Tacos sounds better than Brazos Tacos. But you got to be careful with expanding your footprint because they doubled the size of our kind of patio, and everyone wants to sit outside and drink margs and eat tacos and stuff. And we did not double the size of our kitchen.
Yeah.
And it was a cluster. It was impossible with that many people. There was no way to actually keep up with demand. And that's when, someone that had way more experience in the restaurant industry than me was like, oh, your kitchen should always be about the size of your seating area. And I was like, are you crazy? But now I believe her because I'm like, maybe that's their fear. It would not be smart to add this much more capacity.
I heard last night of what that is going to be. I think it's going to be for private events.
They're just going to rent out one little section of Red Door? I mean, that makes sense. There's enough famous people that go in there to rent stuff.
I think that's what they're going for.
Let's go to Red Door. I bought VIP at Red Door. That just doesn't sound right. I like it being the greasy spot.
It might sound right to someone not from here.
Oh, yeah, the tourism on the weekends. Tourism on the weekends might work.
You could just set up like a little, I don't know, bachelorette luncheon.
Red Door bottle service. It's happening.
Dancing.
That happened at Brazos one time. Some woman came by and I saw her pushing the tables together and putting balloons up. And I was like, "Man, what are you doing?" And she's like, "Well, my daughter she's a bride and she's bringing 12 of her friends, which is going to be good business for you. And I was like, okay, we didn't know anything about that. And like, we don't really reserve tables. When are they coming? She's like, they're going to be here at 2. And it was like noon. And I was like, ma'am, you can't take 2 full picnic tables and for 2 hours. And she's like, well, I would be a little bit more appreciative if I were you. And it was just a very frustrating convo. But then the worst thing in the world happened, which is when they all got there, this woman had been a menace and she was very unpleasant and had been claiming this table and sort of peacocking around at the patio. And when all the girls got there, I don't know how this happened, but we forgot the alcohol in their margaritas. Like all 12 margaritas that went out. Like sometimes when it's a huge batch like that, you just mix them all in a pitcher and shake it up. But they just forgot the freaking tequila. And it was all these young, it was like 22-year-olds.
Did they act like they were fucked up? Did they not even know
they
the
were like,
difference?
oh my gosh, these are the best margs I've ever had. And I'm like, well, good, because you're rocking with sugar, triple sec. I mean, there was triple sec in there, I guess, but there was no tequila. And I didn't know what to do because I was like, oh gosh, if this woman finds out, and comes and complains, it'll just be like, it's going to cause a civil war because she'd already been fighting with one of the servers.
The Godzilla of Karens.
Yeah, and frankly, we made a giant mistake. So I'm like, well, this would be a justified Karen outrage. And I was like, you know what? If they say anything, I'm going to comp this. They're obviously going to get like a full next round, and like those ones are totally on us. I went and made the mom because she hadn't gotten a drink originally, so I made her like a really good drink and brought it out to her. I was like, let me know anything, you just gotta flirt a little, and everything went fine. But that was my great fear. Was I was scared of bridal, any kind of event things in the service industry. I find it too high pressure.
Yeah, I did a year on Broadway. We get 100 bachelorette parties a week.
I guess that's true.
Which as a single dude on Broadway is great at times, but then you're like, wait, this
as a bouncer, you probably gotta like deal with a lot of drama and fallout.
Oh, bro, you deal with all. We had in my first year, we had so it was fall. I was there October 2018 to September 2019, and that time we had a CMA. It was this last CMA Fest pre-COVID, so that was crazy. Like it was normal CMA Fest. We had all the Titans games, all the Predators games, all the concerts at Bridgestone. We had the NFL draft on Broadway.
Wow.
They put a stage by the river, and they had the NFL network and like all the things. Every fan base of every team was in town for a week. I worked during CMA Fest. I remember I worked the Ty Bentley show was still a thing on Cumulus on Nash FM here, and they were doing morning show stuff. So I had to be there from like 3:30 in the morning till like 6 o'clock at night, bouncing on Broadway.
Jeez.
Just crazy shit. You just see a lot of stuff down there, man. Broadway's not for me. We have friends that like going to Broadway a lot because they prefer Broadway over Midtown, which is kind of odd. But when you work in music and you don't want to talk music all the time, you can just go to Broadway and watch bands and get hammered, and do dumb shit.
The only way I do it is if there's like not a Titans game happening and you can park over at the stadium, and then I just walk over that footbridge.
Yeah, the pedestrian bridges.
But I've learned my lesson too many times of being like, maybe I could find parking somewhat near there. It's just like, no, not even gonna try.
Yeah, the parking situation's rough, man. But finishing up here, what are some of your like favorite spots that you've kind of discovered in town? Like, where do you like? You're a mall guy, so you're a
Rivergate Mall. I mean, truly, I'm
guy?
probably like any given week, I'm probably at least once have walked through the Rivergate Mall. Not bought a thing, but just walked through.
Have you gone down to Franklin? I feel like you'd be a Franklin guy.
I went once when I was looking for furniture for my apartment. Went to their Goodwill. It's very fancy. Everything's super nice.
Their Goodwill is like Gallatin Sears.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. Yeah, the Franklin Goodwill is the Gallatin Sears. I like it. It looked like a movie set. That little high school down there and the pretty street lamps. Where else have I really liked?
You an East Nash guy at all, or does that?
I do. I'm very excited this afternoon. I want it to be a spot that I love. I'm getting like a nice ass haircut. I've never gotten like a fancy like haircut and beard trim.
Which one you going?
It's called
to?
Black Heart.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Barber or something.
Yep.
Their site is kind of like standoffish. It's like let us reiterate our cancellation policy. If you don't show up, you will still be charged. We don't care if something came up. If you don't communicate this, you will be charged the full price of your haircut. This is how our business works. It's just, and I'm like, ooh, but I feel like they take their craft seriously.
Yeah, if they're doing all that.
And I like that. So
there's a list of people wanting to get their haircut. They're mad about a cancellation.
Yeah, I want it to be one of my spots. I also I love Red Door. I went to some bar that I think is really cool early on here, and it was like a random day, so I don't know if it's busy or what, but it was called Pearl Diver.
I've heard of that.
And that place was really cool. It was like straight out of the 1950s. It was all like emerald green and flamingo pink, and I got a Mai Tai, and like it was I'd never had a Mai Tai before. I was like, that seems like the appropriate thing to get here. It seems tropical, and I've never had one before. So I think that place is cool. I don't know. Oh, I like 51st Deli.
Dude,
that place just sort of reminds me of this place back home called Bodo's Bagels, in that it's like you roll in still in your sweatpants on like a Saturday morning and you get a bagel sandwich and a coffee. Like I like that place a lot.
You a big brunch guy?
I'm a big that kind of brunch guy. I'm not a big like let's dress nice and eat eggs Benedict and have mimosas. I've always found it cringe.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I prefer the 51st stuff. Well, because there's a place on the west side of town called Big Bad Breakfast, and no free ads here, but like Big Bad Breakfast is a cool spot. Not like a get dressed up and do mimosas. Just
I went to some place that I loved on the west side called Wendell Smith's.
Oh, dude,
I liked that for breakfast.
Yes, Wendell Smith's is good. Are you a hot chicken guy?
I've never had it.
Do you like spicy shit?
No.
I
mean, I don't hate it, but I did have a slice of that hot chicken. It was like there's some pizza place near Whiskey Jam, and they have a slice of pizza that has
2 bits
that has like hot chicken on it. It was too hot for me.
Yeah, you got and Distillery's good right there too. The restaurant right across from Winners. That's a good little spot to pop into.
I went. Is this boring for people?
No, this is fine. We talk about Nashville's and we always wrap up with like Nashville spots.
Okay. I went into a place called. Granted, when I first got here, I was like a mystery to a lot of label people because they were like, "We've seen your videos for years, but no one had ever met me because I didn't ever come here."
Yeah.
So I feel like I got treated to a lot of nice places, and I wasn't footing the bill. So that could color my experience at some of these places.
Wine and dine in Grady Smith. Let's go.
So it's like fun to go get like steak tartare at Fifth and Taylor when you're not paying.
Yeah.
It's fun to go to Oku when you're not paying. It's fun to but the best thing I had was the dessert at a place called Butcher and Bee. Someone got a piece of the banana cake. They're like, you got to get the banana cake. And oh my gosh, it was like the best. It was the best like thing I've eaten in Nashville. So maybe if you just need like a great romantic date for somebody, just get a drink and the banana cake at Butcher and Bee.
Is the portion big enough to where you can
definitely 2 people can split it.
2 people can split it.
It wouldn't be like a meal, but just for dessert.
Just for just quick little dessert and drink.
Yeah.
One last thing, because you've driven through East Tennessee a lot. Have you ever had Pals?
No.
You've never had Pals in East Tennessee?
East Tennessee is like a sort of big area.
Well, I'm talking
it's like off 80.
I'm talking like Tri-Cities. Like Bristol, Johnson City, Jonesboro, Kingsport.
No, and I always sleep in Bristol too on the way home.
So there's Pals Sudden Service. There's my family in like Jonesboro, Tennessee. They're actually coming through Nashville tonight. I'm grabbing dinner with them. My uncle Phil, he calls himself he's a farmer. He calls himself Frugal Farmer Phil.
Okay.
Jonesboro, he's from Stanton, Virginia originally. So he's a proud
way,
Virginia
not
guy.
far from Charlottesville at all.
Yeah, he's a VMI guy, proud Virginia guy. But I grew up going to Pals whenever I go to visit them. It's a fast food place, drive-through only. The building is the food. So it's like a hamburger, a hot dog, and they're only in East Tennessee. And they like put their employees through like a month-long training program like school. It's like Chick-fil-A kind of thing where they're like very we had it in Bristol. Yeah. I fed all of them.
I can't wait to go try it. I mean, I literally drive. That's exactly the route I have to take.
They have
home.
one. Like the Bass Pro is on 81. On the left, when you're crossing over Bristol, it's like in Bristol.
No, I gather that y'all are more attuned to like Bass Pros than me. I don't.
I am by association. I'm still a proud New
You're
Yorker.
just like, okay.
But there's like there's like the shopping center that's on 81, like right on the state line on 81.
Okay.
That exit you'll see there. Or you just type it in your maps or whatever on your route. But they have them only in the Tri-Cities. They're fucking delicious. The food is not super expensive and it's all fresh, like at East Tennessee. I fight that it's my favorite fast food in the country, and I go all over the country on the road. I've been to like 40 something states. I've had everything. Pal's is my favorite, and it's
Heck yeah.
East Tennessee.
Well, I'm excited to try.
East Tennessee, Southwest Virginia original, which I'm proud of too, because I love that area.
Well, heck yeah. I'm glad you're including Virginia in that because
Bristol is partially Virginia.
I know.
And Bristol's
which is
different.
why I think it's dumb. Look, as much as I am a hater of my own home state, we just gave up the whole country music debate, and we're like, oh, Tennessee can just own it. Where I'm like, where the Carter family's from? Virginia.
Yes,
you know
they
where
are.
Bristol is? Half in Virginia.
Yes.
And yet Tennessee is like, we created country music, and it's like, okay.
No.
But so I'm glad that at least Pals is fighting the good fight.
They are.
And including themselves in the Virginia and Tennessee.
Yeah, for sure. Well, where can people go to find you and plug
I'm
all,
just
plug all
on
that shit?
YouTube. It's just my name, Grady Smith. And on Insta, it's Grady W. Smith. Same with TikTok. And I don't know. On any of my videos, there's like a whole long list of all my various links,
Okay, cool.
Spotify stuff. And so people can just click on any of those.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, this was a real pleasure having you. I
Oh, so
appreciate
fun.
you. I figured we would talk for a while. I know I gave you
Did we?
yeah, we've been here. It's like 3
About
o'clock.
an
bro.
hour and a half.
Yeah, we got after it. I figured we'd be talking a lot, so it was a good freaking episode.
heck
man.
yeah, dude.
I appreciate you coming on. Guys, be sure to check out our boy Grady Smith. You can find him of course, on his YouTube channel. He's got a lot coming up here in 2023 going forward, the year of going forward. And if you're here in Nashville, be on the lookout for him. Rivergate Mall. He's hanging out at Rivergate Mall.
I probably am.
he's-
Or the Walmart on Dickerson.
Walmart on Dickerson, but if he's got his AirPods in, it means that he's listening to that new music. So be sure to not interrupt him when he's passionately listening and all that stuff. Shout out to the sponsors, Whaletail Media, Saxman Studios, our boy Mitch Wallace with The Digital Marketing Agency, and our friends at Pickle Jar. Pickle Jar, the world's largest tip jar. Sign up, make an account with promo code ITR. Be sure to rate, like, subscribe. Appreciate you guys for checking this episode out. And of course, shout out to our band Sweet Boy behind the camera. We'll see y'all next time. This has been the In the Round Podcast.